Remember the last piece of art that you bought just because you had to have it, not because it was valuable, not because it was a smart investment. It just spoke to you. Well, that moment gets to the very heart of why we collect. Is it the thrill of owning something unique? Is it the desire to turn something that is our passion into profit? Or is it something more personal? In this post, we're going to explore the fine line between collecting for love and collecting for value, and how that distinction shapes not only our collections, but our relationship to art itself. Hi, this is John Bishop with John Bishop Fine Art. I created this podcast to slow the conversation down, to move beyond the trends, the noise of the art market, and to focus instead on what it really means to live with art. To explore why we collect and what art gives back to us over time. Each post is a reflection on collecting with intention, understanding artists, building meaningful collections, and developing confidence in your own eye. This site is for collectors at any stage, whether you're just beginning or whether you've lived with art for decades. If art has ever stopped you, challenged you, or stayed longer than you expected, then you're in the right place. You know, the whole reason for doing this podcast was to try and slow the conversation down a bit, to not always be hitting people over the head with the trends in the art market and what's going on in the valuing of art and the exciting bits that the art market can offer, but to really hone in and really consider why it is we collect art to begin with. And what that does for us. You know, why is it that this kind of illness that we have is one that we enjoy? Collecting has always been a part of who people are for as long as people have been people. I mean, you look back in history and we were collecting things that were beautiful or powerful or had significance. And we put them in people's tombs, and we sent them off to the afterlife with treasures, and we have looted other civilizations. We've gone to war and stolen and raided vast collections and libraries and just stole from museums, and all for the sake of collecting. It's just part of our DNA. In fact, I've recently read an article called The Collector Hypothesis, and it was fascinating because they were talking about just that, how collecting is a part of the human experience. And they equated it to the fact that there are some birds that decorate their nests in order to attract mates, and made the jump that collecting art is seen as a sign of being more wealthy, of being more cultured, and therefore that you might be a better provider. And so in a sense, collecting art and being perceived as a person of wealth and stability is more attractive when seeking a partner. And so, as I've long suspected, art is there to help your sex life. Good luck. The funny thing is that although we have absolutely equate these high net worth individuals and people who are stable and well-cultured as being better partners and more suitable partners, but the same is not true for the artist. While collectors are considered to be great partner prospects. Artists are not. Artists are generally admired for being creative, but they're kind of viewed as being unworthy or untrustable or flighty or poor. And unfortunately, that kind of stereotype kind of tracks. Sorry, it does. And so there is a real sense in our zeitgeist that to be an art collector is to be more elevated and sophisticated, and that art collectors often get more out of art than the artists do, who might just be self-expressing or trying to make a buck. And that also holds true. I mean, look at the fellow who buys a Rolls Royce. He is enjoying that car a lot more than the factory worker who assembled it, or even the designer who drew up the plans. Art takes on a whole different meaning for the collector than it does for the creator. And, that's fair. But more importantly, I think, collecting art creates community. You remember when you were a kid and you were collecting marbles or trading cards, and you would get together with your friends and show off your collection. And that created a bond between people who were collecting trading cards or marbles. And the same is true of art. Art collectors stick together. They kind of attract one another. They enjoy each other's company because they share this common passion. And that becomes really, really important when you get to a higher level in collecting, is that you can't just buy a Picasso because you can afford it. That doesn't happen. Galleries won't sell to you unless you're the right person to buy the Picasso, regardless of how much it costs. And that happens all the time. And there's this unwritten responsibility that a gallery or that anyone who sells a Picasso has to the other people who collect Picassos. You're joining a group. You're making a commitment when you collect at that level, and it's important for you to be the right kind of person, and that you have the ability to maintain the value of the art from that artist. So there's a great responsibility there. So collecting art is not just creating communities, it's competitively creating communities. It's a bit exclusive in fact. I mean, that's not true for all artists. Obviously, you're welcome to buy my art anytime. But at that higher blue chip, even red chip level, that happens all the time. The important part to that is that art really is a very sound investment. And that has been true for a long time. Traditionally, and I guess since the 60s, the value of art as an investment has been stable or rising since the 1960s. In fact, I just read something recently that said that in 2014, only 14% of wealth advisors were advising their clients that they should have art as part of their portfolios. Only 14% in 2014. Today, 90% of wealth managers suggest that you incorporate art in your overall investment portfolio. That's huge. Some of that has to do with the pandemic, in the unstable political situations and things, and that art has outperformed other markets consistently over time. Plus, it's lovely. Unfortunately, there's then becomes that collector who is only interested in collecting for value, and they buy a piece of art and they store it in a vault somewhere underground where they keep their wine, and they never see their art. It's just there as an asset for value. And that seems unfortunate to me because I would never collect that way. The vast majority of collectors collect because they love art, and they may not even know why they're collecting what they're collecting. And that's kind of the purpose of these conversations, to kind of explore that. Because to not know why you're doing it is a disservice to why you're doing it and to the community of collectors that you associate with. So yeah, I think it's important to understand that art is a good investment. There are some risks. I mean, let's face it, it's not liquid. You can't get rid of art very quickly. It may take a long time, and it may not pay off the way you think. Artists come and go. I mean, come and go out of fashion. There are artists that used to be collected that really now are not that hot. And I'd recently heard, too, that they're having some trouble selling Andy Warhol's work to young collectors because they don't know who the people are that he painted. They don't know who Elizabeth Taylor is. They don't know who Marilyn Monroe is. And so for them, it's just a picture of a lady. Oh, it's not even a picture, it's a print. I think that's hilarious and very, very sad, because those works were so formative in art history, at least in this country. I just thought that was pretty funny. So there's the fact that art can be stolen. And there are estimates that over half of the artwork in galleries and museums are forgeries. And that's a huge liability, right? And therefore, provenance makes a huge difference when collecting art. So it's wrought with risks, with fears, it's unregulated, so it seems very unstable, and yet it has outperformed most other, or maybe all of other investment opportunities. And what I find fascinating is that people who love to collect art often come to collect art not because they just love art and they want to collect it, but because someone introduced them to the concept of collecting art or showed them their collection, turned them on to the idea of collecting art. And it's that kind of apprenticeship that I find most fascinating, because those relationships become very, very deep. And even though some communities of art collectors can become exclusive and restrictive, those that you collect with become very, very close friends, because you share a passion that is probably true of things that other people collect as well. But that's important to know, that if you're just starting out, connecting with other art collectors can create relationships that will last for the rest of your life. So I find that refreshing and fascinating. And sometimes even there's the possibility that those relationships are more valuable than the art. Just something to ponder. Before you go on with your day, I always ask that you do one thing. Go and find one piece of art that you own or that you admire, and spend some time with that piece of art. No objective, no notes, just spend some time with that piece of art. If it speaks to you, if a thought comes up, if realization pops into your head, I'd love to hear it. But spending time with a piece of art that you love is where collecting really resides. That's where you're going to find meaning for your collection. So slow down, pick a piece of art, and spend some time with it. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you have, give me a like, give me a follow, whatever is appropriate to the platform that you're on. And because it really does help me to share more information. I would also love to hear from you in the comments. Love to know what you think and any suggestions or questions you may have. Other than that, I am John Bishop with John Bishop Fine Art. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time.